Hey, you reached part 7 of the 1973 Arctic Cat Panther restoration series. In this video, we take this Kawasaki 440 and we build it up. I take you through step by step on everything you need to do to put this motor back together successfully. We gotta get to work, so pitter patter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the backside. All right, so I bought these from Dennis Kirk. Let's see what's in them. Come with some basic instructions. A piston kit that's got circlips, a wrist pin, and a standard piston, and a standard set of rings. Let's get after gapping them to the respective cylinder. All right, to keep everything straight, we're gonna call this piston or cylinder 1. We're gonna call that piston 1. We'll call this box 1. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is check to make sure that the piston fits the cylinder. We have good clearance. Everything looks good. All right, the manual says here in step 11, you want your ring gap between 8 and 16 thousandths. I'll set up a couple of feeler gauge sets to hit that. Use it like a go, no go gauge. Let's see how we do. A little bit of lubricant on the cylinder walls. Use the piston to push the ring. We're going to measure that right towards the top of the stroke. Here, you can see the ring is right up here at the top of the cylinder. 8 thousandths. That's our minimum. 16 thou max. This ring is good to go. We'll do a repeat on the other 4 rings and get this thing ready to put together. Okay, so now it's time to put these rings on. You can see there's a dowel pin right here in the piston, and these rings are chamfered to fit that dowel pin. Let's see if we can get these on without breaking them. All right, so now you've got your rings on. You can see right here, this little dowel in the piston. You can see how the ring is grooved to fit that dowel. So you want to be careful of that. These rings are pretty tough to get on. I had to do a little bit off camera as I was cussing and swearing at it, but that's piston 2. The other ones are done. Good to go. All the rings measured between 8 and 16 thou. Let's move on to something else. All right, so we got the crankshaft assembly cleaned, ready to go. We got the case halves cleaned, ready to go. I got 2 brand new crank seals. I got all my hardware. I got some 2-stroke oil. We got to talk about one thing. All right, so here's a crankshaft assembly. Nowhere on the interwebs does it talk about the center seal and what is good and what's bad. All you ever see on forums is change your center seal. Well, this is an aluminum disc. It's a labyrinth seal. That's what you need to have. If you have a rubber seal, like one of these, that's got to go, and you got to split your crankshaft. Nowhere on the interwebs does it talk about that. Here's the part number, 3001-437. There's $3 for this O-ring. Special thanks to this guy, Jerry's New Old Stock Cat Parts. He spent 10 minutes on the phone explaining all this, and this is where I got him. I've been buying a lot of my parts from him. No plug, no sponsorship, but a nice guy. Very fast on email. I recommend calling him, Jerry's New Old Stock Cat Parts. There's not a single thing he hasn't had yet. All right, so we're gonna go about stretching these O-rings on. I'm gonna do it live, so if I break it, you're right there with me. All right, here goes nothing. So far, so good. Bam! First O-ring's on, repeat for the second. All right, so one of the things the manual says is to pack this seal liberally with grease. And we're not talking Bernie Sanders liberal, we're just talking a lot. So I've got some lightweight grease here. We'll just grease this up. We're gonna put that on the ends of the crankshaft. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit of 2-stroke oil on the bearings. Get those ready. I'm gonna do a dry run first. Don't forget to put your washers on. Dry fit here. Again, don't forget to put your washers in behind your seals, here and here. One of the things I want to talk about is this center seal. Now, again, there's no information out there on these things, so I'm assuming you're going to want to position this to be centered in between these two bearings. Nothing saying that it can't, but it can float in there. So make sure if you're putting this in, I'm guessing you're going to want to center it up. We'll have a look at that one more time. So I'm going to pull this crankshaft back out again, and we're going to seal the edges of the flange. So think about is this seal right here off this stator. That's got to fit in this groove, and when those parting flanges touch, it's going to be real hard to get that in. So one of the things I'm going to have handy is this stator, and it's all wired together. I'm going to have this handy so I can stuff that in there when the time is right. All right, we're going to seal the parting halves. I'm going to use Yamabond 4, highly recommended by guys that build race engines. That's what's going to end up on the parting flanges and on the seals. So Yamabond 4. All right, here we go. Fingers crossed. All right, so one of the things I noticed here is my center seal O-rings are kind of loose. All right, so we're just tightened up by hand. You can see I got a nice even bead of Yamabond all the way around. I'm pretty happy with that. Put the stator on. You can see right here I got this grounded in nice. Something to think about. All right, so I got you flipped around so we could follow the torque sequence per the book. 13 millimeter. Don't show up on camera with a 1/2 inch because it don't work. All right, this one's number 1. I think I'll check. Looks like we're still nice and free. So there you go. Crankcase assembled. We got nice free movement. I got good squirt of all the Yama bond. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so we're ready to assemble the pistons to the connecting rods. Now the pistons have arrows on them. They're going to go to the exhaust side, which is going to be away from you in the video. We've got new clips and wrist pins. All the hardware is laid out. I got some 2-cycle oil. Let's see if we can get these on. Cylinder-based gaskets, I would advise, put them on dry. So dry it is. All right, long nuts, per the book, go on the clutch side, or what they call the PTO side, right here. All right, so one of the things that I was talked about today, and luckily I hadn't torqued these heads down, is the position of the circlip. You want the opening on the top or the bottom, and you can see that this one's at about that 4 o'clock mark. So we're gonna rotate that around and I'll show you again what that looks like. Installation instructions that come with your piston kit clearly says to position the openings either up or down. And that's what we're gonna do. All right, so here we go. With that tang at the 1 o'clock position, you can clearly see that the opening is on the top. I'm gonna repeat this for all 4 circlips and just make sure, but I'm really glad I didn't torque these heads down because I would have been, I'd have had some problems later. Okay, we're out of time for the night. We're gonna torque these down tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. All right, so tonight we're back. We wanna torque these heads down, but in order to do that, we gotta get them in position. How we do that is by the book. We put the intake on, and that gets the heads in the right position. I'm also gonna put the exhaust on just because I have it handy and ready to go. So let's get this stuff on so we can torque these heads down. All right, with our induction and our exhaust on, we can get out there to start torquing these heads. 16 foot-pounds on the torque wrench, 13 millimeter. We start in this corner. Torqued, good to go. All right, now the intake and exhaust come off. We'll have to be putting that back on later. All right, the next step is align the scribe mark made on the magneto assembly plate and on the crankcase and tighten screws securely. Well, what I can find is right here on the magneto, we've got a mark, and there's this mark here on the case. It's the only marks on the magneto that I can find. So we're going to adjust that right to there. Tighten your screws. Hopefully that works. We'll know in a couple of days. At this point, you're going to install your key in the keyway, like so. All right, so it says to install the flywheel to the crankshaft, like so. Lock tab and lock washer, and your nut. All right, so we got the nut torqued to 60 foot-pounds using Arctic Special flywheel holding tool. And we're good to go to move on to the next one. Don't forget, we got to bend the lock tab over. All right, next we're going to install our fan housing. But first we got to make sure and install our fan. Hopefully yours is as pretty as that one. All right, so I had some trouble getting half this pulley off this shaft, so I'm going to put the ever so slightest little bit of anti-seize on this. Then install your pulley assembly. So something I mentioned in the dismantle are these little shims that go on this shaft determine the belt tension when we're completed, like so. The farther this pulley squeezes together, the tighter the belt tension is. For now, I'm just putting this together just so I can put the housing on. All right, time to put your fan shroud on. All right, we got a little bit of a setback. I got no spark. So we're gonna fix that. And I'm going to do a separate video just on electrical troubleshooting, where to put your meter, what this should read and what that should read, but we'll keep that for a separate video. We're just going to keep chugging on. When I get this back together, we'll start over. All right, so both points are set to about 13 thousandths of an inch. This one is currently closed. So set them all 12 to 16 thou. Then we're going to put the timing light on it. All right, so I've got my magneto timing light hooked up to the wires that come off of the points. And what we're looking for is right here to see that the point's open right at the fire marks. You can see that I am a little bit late. So what we need to do is adjust the screws in here on the stator plate to get those marks to line up. We'll see if we can make that happen. All right, so now we're in a situation where the right magneto fires right exactly where it needs to be. However, the left magneto is a little bit early. So we're going to open up the points on the left side just a touch over here. All right, so I think we've beat timing to death here. I can't get everything on camera, but what I can say is this is an aircraft magneto timing light. You can buy them at like Aircraft Spruce. They're not real expensive, but it's what I had and it's what I use. It worked great. The key to this whole thing is two items. One, you need point setting of 12 to 16 thousandths, and you need it to fire at the right time. So we can see at the right magneto, is firing exactly where it needs to be. Left magneto firing exactly where it needs to be. Point settings are within limits. I'm going to call this a win. We're moving on. All right, now you install the lower fan pulley. All right, so now we're going to slide our belt on. And remember, I said this a few times in the video, the washers here that made up with this pulley half will set your belt tension. Let's see how that works out. All right, so I reused the amount of washers that were in here, and after I torqued it to specs, I was able to get this belt right where I wanted it. So it feels like good deflection. I'm happy with that. The key to this operation is to make sure that your fan is painted nice and pretty. That's key. All right, next install your fan cage. Then the recoil. All right, next we're going to put our intake on, but we need to sandwich a whole lot of gaskets in between everything. So I'll do most of that off camera. All right, so I've got everything sandwiched together. I've got a gasket between the manifold and the tin, and this will be from the tin to the engine. Let's see if we can get this on. All right, so same thing here. We're gonna put 2 gaskets on the head. Then the tin. Two more gaskets. And then the manifold. So one of the things I noticed is the exhaust nuts are brass. Probably pretty important in case they rust. All right, next you're going to put the rest of your engine tin on. Remember, this one and this one are going to get the clips for the spark plug wires. The little anti-seize on your spark plugs, put those in. These are some older plugs. I'll put some new ones in once we get some initial runs done. Finally, wrestle that bastard underneath there. Make sure you put some Loctite on your bolts. All right, next we're going to put the starter in. Not sure if I want to use it, but at this point, we're going to stick it in the hole anyway. You guys made it through a long video of the overhaul of my Kawasaki 440. That's going to go on my Panther project right over there. It turned out a lot more technical than I planned. It was very long, but very rewarding. Special thanks to Pete the Canadian and Jack from work. Lots of help on these different parts, and I couldn't have done it without them. So thanks guys, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.